Welcome to Ledgerock Distillery. My name is Bryce Retzer. I'm the head distiller here. Hope you enjoy your visit. Cheers. When my dad first decided, hey, we are going to fully go ahead and do this, he took our grain up to 45th parallel and made 28 barrels there,
Okay.
just so the clock would start ticking. It's actually this guy right here.
Okay.
But that is finished in a port wine barrel coming up.
Oh.
Right there in your hand, that's finished in one of my used bourbon barrels. I try to keep all the grains that I'm growing for the distillery within eyesight of the distillery.
You feel, I mean, it's good marketing.
Exactly. And
I'm Alan Cogan. Join me as I highlight small businesses with interviews on site at distilleries, breweries, and more. My mission is to share the stories of the awesome people behind the craft. Welcome to Crafted Conversations. All right, well, Bryce, we're here at Ledgerock.
yeah, welcome to Ledgerock.
Thank you. It's in Fond du Lac, right?
Yep, we're just outside of Fond du Lac right now.
Okay.
So
And the township is Empire?
technically, yes.
Okay.
So
I've been up this way before. I'm originally from Wisconsin, but I've never been here,
Gotcha.
and I've rarely been in Fond du Lac.
yep.
So I appreciate you having me.
Yeah, no problem. We appreciate you being here.
Yeah, of course. So tell me about your story, how you got into this, what you do here, and we'll go from there.
Well, my name is Bryce Retzer. I'm the head distiller up here at Ledgerock Distillery. Really, how this all got started was about 6 years ago. I guess the distillery started 6 years ago. The whole idea started about 10 years ago. My dad threw the idea at me when I was 13, 14 and said, hey, we have all the grain here. We have the water here. Since we're up on top of the Niagara Escarpment, it's all limestone underneath us. He goes, we have the room to do this. You're probably not going to be able to stay on the farm full time once you graduate high school. We just don't have the acres for you to stay on the farm.
Sure.
He goes, but we have everything that allows you to be involved with the farm. And he's like, what do you think? And at first I was like, I don't know, but I was also 13, 14 at the time. As I went through high school, he pretty much took me to farm distilleries across the nation. And what I fell in love with is the guys that could truly say they planted it all the way to the day they bottled it. And that's what I truly love about us here is from the day I plant the seed to the day I get to combine it, bottle it, everything, taking care of it, I see it the whole way through. It never leaves this property. And that's what really spoke to me. And that's kind of what drove the spark of it. I graduated my senior year of high school, waited 9 months to get my final federal permit, and jumped in here and started making vodka and gin 100% from the corn that I grew off the farm.
That's awesome.
So
Is that how you guys started, with just white spirits?
we started out with the white spirits just because I wanted to get something on the shelf.
Right.
But we really knew bourbon and whiskey, that was going to be the main focus. So I would say 9 months out of the year right now, I'm producing a bourbon or a whiskey. And that's kind of transition because when I started, I came from the farming industry.
Right.
I didn't know bourbons really at first.
Sure.
So to take mash bills and be like, man, I hope this tastes good and maybe make, 100 barrels, 150 barrels of it. And it's kind of a gamble. So when I first started, we had no idea how much to produce. Should we
Right.
be making 5 barrels, 20 barrels, 1,000?
Yeah.
I didn't know what the mash bills were going to taste like. I didn't know what our sales were going to be like. There was just a lot of variables there I didn't have answers for. So that first year I made 100 barrels and I thought that would be way more than I ever should.
Yeah.
Looking back, I should have made 1,000.
I honestly love that, though, because as I've gone around talking to people like you in small businesses, from micro to middle of the road
Yep.
craft to the big boys, how daunting of a task it is to start a small business, especially in the whiskey industry, where resources are tied up for years.
Yes.
And I mean, we'll get into aging and all that stuff and what you do, but I mean, how much of that was a mental hurdle and it's a family-run business, right?
100% family run. So you could see the stress in everybody. I mean, because there was just a lot of questions there that nobody quite knew the outcome of what was going to happen. And it was just faith and trial and error. And, good thing growing up on the farm is you just learn by trial, and just keep doing it. And we're really glad we did it now.
Yeah.
But back then I was like, I don't know how this is going to turn out.
Yeah, that's wild. So tell me about your family. So it's family farm.
Yep. So my grandpa was a dairy farmer, raised heifers. My dad, and he's the true brains behind us. He's the one that got it all going. he did not enjoy milking cows. That was not his thing. So he moved up here, and it's only about 10 miles from my grandpa's farm.
Okay.
And he bought this piece of ground that we're on right now and started cash cropping. And then he started renting out properties around us to expand the farm. So we now have a little over 500 acres right here that we can grow the grain for the distillery. And growing up, that's all I did was farm. I was always with dad somewhere on the farm. My dad still works full time in town. He's a dairy loan officer. So that kind of pigeonholes him a little bit because he can't go buy ground that some of his clients are interested in also because it's a conflict of interest.
Yeah.
So our farm wasn't going to get any bigger.
Sure.
So we had to add value in a different way that everybody else was in the area. So my dad oversees the government side of it. He makes sure they're happy. He makes sure I have the bottles to fill, the tops, the tamper proofs, all that good stuff. And then my mom handles all the cocktails. She handles all of our events because every weekend we're doing bands, food trucks, vendor fairs, car shows, barbecue competitions, weddings, all that good stuff. That's kind of her role. Mm-hmm. She's a teacher during the day, so I get her during the summer just when she's off. And then my younger brother is a freshman in college, and he's starting to come back. So he's hopefully going to go get a marketing business, and then he will be up here to help me out. So other than that, it's really, we have one full-time employee that's non-family.
Wow.
He's handling all my sales distribution. Other than that, it's 100% family done. So if you come up on a Saturday, grandma will be mixing cocktails with my little brother probably. Me and dad will be in the tasting room, and my mom will be out putting fires out around the area. So
man, what a terrible job.
Yeah. So
that's neat.
Yeah.
I love that. I mean, having your coworkers be your family, and having a little bit of probably a bigger point of pride and a lot more TLC goes into the product because
100%.
I mean, you're here every day doing it with your dad and your mom. That's awesome.
And it's your family name on it. So
right. It's a good point.
Big thing.
Man. Well, were you always an alcohol guy? Or did you get into whiskey just because? Was your dad a whiskey guy?
My dad was a whiskey guy.
Okay.
He enjoyed a good bourbon. And then he started learning about the other distilleries that were farm based.
Yeah.
And he really started keen on those. Like Stumpy's out of Illinois. We know them pretty well. And we just like their process. So we like their product. So my dad always enjoyed a good bourbon, but we were still working enough that you couldn't always have one,
right.
So that's kind of when I started. I never had a vodka, a gin, a bourbon, or whiskey before this, really.
Wow.
I wasn't of age.
Okay. Well, that's fair.
I was 18,
Good.
19,
Disclaimer.
Yes. So disclaimer, I wasn't of age. So I kind of had to develop that palate as I grew through the business.
Interesting.
And we had a, kind of a unique way where I'd produce it, sample it, and be like, this is what I like. Then I'll go to my dad when he got home from work. He would try it. And then we have a pretty good group of regulars that come up that are bourbon enthusiasts. And then they would try it. And they were very honest. And they would tell me what their true opinions. So that was kind of my tasting panel for those first couple of years.
That's cool.
Now we're starting to enter some competition, so I get some better feedback from the big names. But that's how we started out, was me, then goes to dad, and then goes to our couple of regulars that come up quite often. So.
Well, that's so interesting because that's man. I always talk to people about their learning process.
Yep.
So your learning process was literally a learning process
from ground zero.
You're white knuckling it the entire time.
100%, because I learned the basics. So 45th Parallel up in North.
Yep.
They put a 2-day class on. We went up there, learned the basics up there, and the distilling community in Wisconsin is amazing. I mean, that's really any question I had about the basics, they would answer, and I could really dive into it with them and. Ask about mash bills and all that good stuff and yeast. So they kind of taught me the basics, and then I had the good feeling of how to do it, but to really fine tune it, the flavors, the profiles, it's just trial and error back here.
Right.
So I came home and we had all the grain at the farm. So I could utilize as much grain as I possibly wanted when I first started. Sure. Grain wasn't worth anything at that time. Still isn't today. Yep. So dad's like, just learn how to utilize it. Right. When it's dirt cheap. Yeah. So that's really how it all started. I mean, there was days I was going through 4,000 or 5,000 pounds of grain and not seeing anything quite out of it. Right. Or not. Whatever came out of it wasn't what I was expecting. Sure. So I could always redistill it and get to be something I wanted it, but it, took a couple different curves along the way. That's wild. All right, so everything that you make here comes from your farm. Yep. Have you ever had to supplement with other people, or? So the only thing, I'm slowly working on my rye whiskey right now. Okay. I don't grow a ton of rye on the farm. We do not sell rye up here. And that's just been a big learning curve. When I did learn how to distill, everybody said, leave rye for last.
Oh, rye's tough.
Go make everything else you want and then try to make a rye.
Yeah.
So I am buying rye right now. That way I don't have to grow 2 acres of it because that's all I would use in a year.
Right.
But if I would ever decide to fully go on with a rye whiskey, I would grow rye on the farm. So I might buy grain to experiment with, but for our sales, it's 100% off of our farm right now.
Gotcha. Well, cool. I mean, on top of that too, you have the space that is, you're more than just a distillery. You have an event space. You have the room to have extra stuff going on. And I love that, especially being a small business, you have to fill the cash register more than just your whiskey.
Exactly.
How were you guys, what was the envision for that when you first started? Did you want to do everything all and above, or?
No, we didn't see the event side at all when we first started.
Okay.
We are built for more of the production side of that because we are built out in the country.
Yeah.
We're not downtown foot traffic area. So we didn't know, is one person coming a day or is 100 people coming a day? So we're like, we're going to build more on the production side and slowly build to the people side if we see that kind of traffic coming through.
Sure.
And so now we have a pretty small tasting store, but when the weather is nice, we can have 400 to 600 people outside having cocktails, chilling out, listening to live music, all that good stuff.
Sure.
So that will be a step coming down the road. We had to build our rick house first,
get
our barrels situated over there. That was about a 2-year ago process that we went through. Now we are kind of looking into that next step here when we are ready.
Very cool. Well, one of the things I'm always curious about too, and you said your dad handles all the government side, making them happy, which is not a fun job.
No.
As a worker of the government,
Yep.
the good side of the government. I don't work for the ATF. All the hurdles and things you don't think about when you start a distillery.
It's unbelievable.
And I currently live in North Carolina.
Yep.
I was in Virginia. I'm from Wisconsin. And just the simple buying, I used to be able to go to CVS and buy Everclear. And now I go to Virginia and North Carolina. And like, if you're out drinking on a Sunday, they slap your wrist. But I mean, how much of a hurdle has it been? And how much has the community helped you and the local city been able to like, hey, no, we want small businesses here. Let's help you out.
The town of Empire has been great because this wasn't getting done anywhere in the area really.
Right.
So it was new for everybody.
Yeah.
The township, the county, this area, we are the only one in Fond du Lac County right now. So they didn't know what to expect, but they were willing to work with us and figure it out. But there was a ton of big hurdles to jump through when we first going. Even the first really 2-3 years, it was a learning by fire, really. And that's for everybody. But the state's been great about it. Those inspectors just got to do their job. I do mine. We work together, and everyone's been really nice. So it took it took pretty much 3 years before we could process anything to get all the licensing, get the building built, get the equipment in here plumbed, water ran to it, all that good stuff, and get certified to do everything that we are doing as of today. Yeah, and I mean, I've talked to a lot of my friends about maybe down the road opening my own distillery because I love this stuff. Yep. I know the business side of it. I've never distilled myself. One day when they make it illegal in my backyard. To be clear, I'm not doing that now. But it's, it sounds so daunting to start this. And then it's like, oh, well, you have 2 to 3 years of permitting and all these things. And then, by the way, you want to do whiskey? Well, you got to age it. Yeah, that's the trickiest part.
So tell me about that. When you're doing white spirits to pay the bills, and then you decide to lay some bourbon or whiskey down. What was the calculus there for aging? Was it short first or smaller barrels, or what'd you do?
So there's a couple different ways. When my dad first decided, hey, we are going to fully go ahead and do this, he took our grain up to 45th parallel and made 28 barrels there,
okay,
just so the clock would start ticking.
Smart.
He knew bourbon and whiskey, that's what people wanted nowadays.
Yep.
Like you said, white can pay the bills, but it's not nearly as convenient and easy. So it's like, let's start this clock ticking by making some bourbon. So he took our grain up to 45th parallel. They made 28 barrels of bourbon for us, and that they helped us with the basics of it. We brought the barrels home and aged them here once this building got licensed.
Okay.
And so that's how we started the clock. And then when I started distilling, I had no idea where to get good barrels from. I thought I would go down to Kentucky, find some good barrels down there. I was a little disappointed.
Yeah.
Just when the barrels showed up, they were so dried out and cracked. No matter the swelling I could do to them, I could not get them to hold a drop of liquid, really.
Really?
Pretty much out of 40 barrels, we could use 8 of them. So then that was just a cooperage. sat out and dried in way too long.
Right.
I still have those barrels sitting in the rick house today. They might be there for quite a while. So then I went to Minnesota. There's a cooperage up there that at first was doing air dried barrels, and I really liked them. Then she switched to doing a kiln dried barrel. And left a little bit too many of the tannins in the oak for me.
Oh.
So, and those are 30-gallon barrels. So I did want to start out with 30s just to try to get that clock ticking a little bit quicker.
Right.
But about 4.5 years ago, I found ISC out of Lebanon, Missouri, and I will not look back from them. Those are the barrels I truly love.
I've heard a lot of good things about them.
I can't say enough good things about them. They have the science figured out. They pretty much ask you what flavors you want to hit. Mm-hmm. They will design that barrel for you. And the communication's great. Wow. When the barrels they say are going to be here, the barrels show up. So with my process, I can always be a month ahead so that the day the barrels are here, the day the barrels are full. That way there's no sitting around drying out.
Right.
So really we went from 45th making the first couple barrels to the Minnesota cooperage and then the Kentucky cooperage and then really finding our home with ISC.
Awesome.
So those we are now running all 53 traditional barrels, 18-month air-dried white oak staves, and that's what I'm really falling in love with right now.
For sure.
You know.
Awesome. So how about the aging? So did you find a sweet spot for your benchmark now, or is there?
I'm still working on
it.
Because
good.
You know, at 2.5 years, I was trying barrels, and I'm trying to figure out ones that I really liked and ones I didn't. You know, and just I was still learning my mash bills because there was multiple mash bills there that I was like. I just wanted to see which direction they were headed. Mm-hmm. So we have a Farm Boy bourbon. That one instantly I could tell I was picking up the sweeter notes. And I have a sweet tooth. So if you go through any of my products, you're probably going to pick up an apple, a caramel, a cherry. That's what I'm looking for when I'm producing products.
Sure.
In Wisconsin, they like their sweeter notes.
Yep.
So pretty much I knew the Farm Boy had that sweetness with it. And I'm like, I like this one. And it was actually Christmas. And it was only 2.5 years old. And I'm like, I'm going to do a 1-barrel release. I enjoyed the barrel.
Sure.
We released it, sold out that day. And we got pretty good feedback from it. And I didn't know what to expect at first. So then we started pulling 1 barrel when I enjoyed it. Just slowly. It might be 2-3 months. I'd find another barrel. And I'm like, hey, I like this one. I'd bottle it up and we'd sell it.
Okay.
So we did that all the way until that batch was about 4.5 to 5 years old. Just pulling one here and there when it wanted to work. And then at 4.5 is where I really started finding a sweet spot, I would say.
Okay.
So then we started bottling up pretty quickly. And unfortunately, we sold out of that pretty quickly. Good problem to have. And going back to where I wish I would have made a lot more at the beginning.
Sure.
So my true goal is to get all my bourbons to 5 years. That would be my minimum statement right now.
Okay.
That is what we are producing for today right now. And up until this summer, I did all single barrel releases because I wanted to let my barrels age out as long as possible. If I even got another 3 weeks on them, great.
Sure.
So I'd pull 1 barrel at a time, bottle it up, sell it out. When I would get close to selling out, I would go find my next barrel that I enjoyed. So that it was a single barrel every single time. The consistency was wavering a little bit because it was that new barrel every time.
Right.
This summer, we're getting more into our groove a little bit. More barrels are hitting that age statements where I'm looking for. So now I'm taking 3 to 5 barrels and I'm actually getting into blending a little bit.
Okay.
And I'm adding some complexity to the bourbons that I'm enjoying blending the barrels quite a bit. Just learning the different parts of the rick house, which barrels to pull, all that good stuff.
I'm actually glad as a consumer that the stigma around blending, the word blending, has kind of started to go away.
A little bit.
I think the education is there now that people understand what it means.
Mm-hmm.
It's that, I mean, it used to be like you see on like the plastic bottle of really cheap scotch blended.
Yep.
But no, so good. I mean, I love that you're able to experiment. And that's one of my favorite things about craft distillers like yourself.
Yep.
You have that room to play.
Exactly.
Yes, you have to pay the bills.
Yep.
And yes, you have to meet your quotas and all the things to fill your spreadsheet. But if you and your dad decided like, hey, what if we tried this?
Mm-hmm.
You can do that on a random Sunday.
And there's 90 barrels of that sitting here right now.
I love it. Yeah. I want to hear about it.
Yeah. So how my production season kind of looks is I'm guaranteed barrels from pretty much November till June.
Okay.
And I can make better bourbon here during the winter because when it gets so dang warm in here with the equipment running, my fermenters want to run away in temperature. So if I can keep it 50 degrees in here, 47 degrees in here, I myself don't have to wake up as much to come check the fermenters and they can keep, a little bit more steady pace with them. So I like making bourbon during the winter. fall, winter, spring. That's when I want to produce. So then come June, I'm done making bourbon. My vodka and ginnies can handle a little bit higher temperatures.
Sure.
And they just are not nearly as aggressive. So I make my vodka and gin during the summers. And then during fall, there's usually a little bit of a lull where it's like, I got about a month and a half. Now we are extremely busy on the farm, but there's those rainy days, I'll come up here and I might make a mash, with a different yeast, different mash bill, different kind of oak, all that good stuff. So we're slowly working on those experiments. It's only 1 to 2 barrels at a time.
Sure.
I buy barrels from all over the country pretty much. And that's what I do in the fall when I got a little bit of a downtime.
Yeah.
So
no, that's cool.
But yeah, we'll get into all that here in a little bit. The experimental batches. So
well, that's cheers to your hard work with some of your benchmarks, your core line.
So we got the Farm Boy out front here. So this is our #1 bourbon right now.
Okay.
This is a Missouri White Oak, #1 char. So we did a really light char on this barrel. And then I toasted the barrel to get that little bit more sweetness coming through with it.
Okay.
This is a 57 corn, 34 wheat. The rest is malted barley. And this one's just over 4 years right now. So
I was going to say, I can smell that malted barley. I love malted stuff.
90 proof right now in a bottle.
Okay. Hey y'all, Alan Cogan here with Crafted Conversations. If you want to support the show and the mission of sharing the stories of craft, head over to buymeacoffee.com/craftedconvos. I'd really appreciate throwing a couple bucks my way to help me pay for travel, the equipment that I use, the time that I spend editing, all the software that I use. I really appreciate any support you can give me. And if you can't afford a couple bucks, at least give me some feedback or go over to our YouTube and subscribe or follow us on Spotify. Anything helps to make sure that we share the story of craft and give these small business owners a little limelight and get them out on a platform that really showcases what they're doing. I can't do this without you guys or your support, so I would really appreciate you pitching in and helping out. So I'll see you out there, and I really appreciate it. Cheers. Oh, that's sweet.
And that's
good.
I got a little bit of chocolate off of it today. And your palate changes every day. So yesterday I tried it. I didn't pick that chocolate note out on that back end, but today I did. And that's what I'm looking for.
Yeah, that's big. I love that. How much is it barley?
5. So that's 57 corn, 34 wheat. The rest is malted barley. So I'd have to figure it out exactly.
Yeah, I'm not a math person.
No, so me either. That's
less than
I'm good
10%.
farming and making bourbon, but it's less than 10%. So we use a very, very small. And that's one thing we don't do is a malting process. Oh, yeah. Prairie Malt out of Sheboygan, they handle that for us. And I don't ever foresee us getting into that. We don't use a ton of it. Yeah. Because I do a lot of wheated bourbons up here because I grow a lot of wheat on the farm.
Sure.
But I always like to throw in a little bit of the malted just to help me out on the tail end.
Everyone I've talked to who has their own malting floor hates it.
Yep.
It is such a extra process.
I can believe that.
So have you ever thought about doing a single malt?
A little bit. That's kind of the new trend right now.
Yeah, I know. That's why I asked.
So I'm still working on my basics of just, I want my Farm Boy Retzer Farm Bourbon to get the age statements, and I want to be able to produce it to enough that we always have it year round.
Sure.
So it's coming down the line here, but right now I'm just going to focus on the bourbons.
Yeah. So, well, you can't go wrong with bourbon. Single malt has having its day.
Yep.
Rye's starting to come back up a little bit.
A little bit. There's definitely a market for it, but it's not nearly as much. And honestly, with this equipment, making rye is not fun. I'm getting better at it, but the first 2 batches were a nightmare.
Yeah.
I scorched them real bad.
I've heard horror stories.
Yeah. So those are days you question your insanity when you're making rye. So I'm just going to stick right now to the bourbons. Right now we're producing a vodka, 2 gins, 3 bourbons, 2 whiskeys, a moonshine when we need to, and then occasionally a brandy. The brandy is not sourced from us, or I should say the grapes, the fruit is not sourced off of our own farm. That's coming down the line here too.
Okay.
If a winery calls me and say, hey, they got some wine that they're looking to get rid of, I'll take it and distill it to be a brandy. But it's a very, very small portion, usually a barrel a year maybe.
Sure.
There is none in the works for this year right now. So,
well, you're in Wisconsin, so I think you're required by law to make brandy.
Pretty much, yeah. So, like going back to that sweeter notes of everything.
Yeah,
so,
absolutely. Yeah. So Farm Boy, is that what you would consider your this is your intro bourbon? This is what we make most of?
Yes.
Your core?
Yep, that's my #1 bourbon right now. That is definitely what we were making the most of. So probably putting down about 120 barrels a year of the Farm Boy right now as we speak.
Okay.
That's probably And then we got the Retzer Farm bourbon. That one's got that little higher corn mash bill. So that one's using 75% corn versus that 57% corn in the Farm Boy.
Sure.
So the Retzer Farm and the Farm Boy are our top 2 bourbons right now. And that's definitely what I'm running on the equipment majority of the time.
Okay.
So
cool. All right. What else we got here?
So we got the Retzer Farm bourbon.
Oh, you just said, okay.
Yep. So the biggest difference is the barrel. This is a number 3 char on this barrel. And then it's a smokier profile with a toast. That toast is it's profile number 47. So it's supposed to give it a little bit more of that smoky finish.
Yeah.
And the biggest difference is the barrel and then the corn with this one. So.
Okay.
That's at 92 proof right now.
Wow. And that drinks a lot less than 92 proof.
Mm-hmm.
There's a problem for me.
Yep.
That's way different.
Exactly.
That's really good.
They're both aged out in, relatively same area in the Rick House. That one's right at 4 years right now.
Okay.
So for an age statement. So
very cool. And you wanted to get to 5 years for everything.
That's my goal.
Okay.
So we are producing 500 bottles a day on average when I can guaranteed get the barrels.
Mm-hmm.
I don't need 500 bottles a day for my sales.
Sure.
I'm trying to overproduce on purpose so that I can get to the 5 year, then look at that 7, then look at that 9, then look at that 12 year.
Some of the specialties.
Yep. So that's really what I'm driving to. Now I know my mash bills. I know what to expect. I know my yeast strains that I'm running.
Right.
And, so I kind of have all the basics. I wouldn't say figured out, but I know what to expect coming out of them.
Sure.
So I'm more comfortable putting away 250 barrels of just this and be like, all right, I know what I'm going to get out of this.
Right.
For the most part. You always got that outlier barrel that kind of does what it wants.
Of course.
But so we are, overproducing back here on purpose, I would say. And then we do a little bit of contract distilling work also.
Okay.
So that opens up the door for barrels going out to other distilleries because that's what I really enjoy doing is contract work.
Okay. Tell me more about that. How does that work?
So, with distilling in Wisconsin, we were the 21st distillery, I believe, in the state of Wisconsin.
Okay.
Last time I looked, they were pushing up near 70 licenses issued.
Yeah.
So some of those distilleries, they're downtown foot traffic. They have the great bar atmosphere.
Yeah.
They don't have the room to store the barrels
right.
or the production side of it. That's our strength is the production side of it and then the barrel house. So we will make it to their specs, their recipes, all that good stuff. They can, be up here when we're producing it, age it out for them, and then they take it home and put their label on it, or we'll label it and bottle it here for them. So that's really one road I want to get down because my main goal is to utilize as much grain off the farm as possible because really it doesn't take a lot of grain to make a lot of alcohol.
No.
I mean, on average, I'm going through 1,500 pounds a day, 1,450 to 1,500 pounds a day. It's a little over 25 bushels,
Right.
So that was my dad's biggest disappointment is when we started is we need to utilize more grain off of the farm because out of those 500 acres, I might use 30, 35 acres a year.
Oh, that's it.
That's it.
Wow.
And that's supplying us and then supplying 2 other distilleries as well.
With grain.
So that is the main role is whatever we got to do to utilize more grain off the farm. That's what I want to get into more because it's a nicer, stable market for the farm.
Yeah.
The commodity markets, when they're up and down, you never know what to expect next year is going to bring. Where bourbon, I know what kind of the price is going to be next year.
Right.
So it's more of a stable market. So it helps me through the farm. I can buy grain from myself, help me here because it's still cheaper than what I can buy it from the mill.
Mm-hmm.
And then I can get really picky about our grains. And that's what I truly love about it. So whatever we got to do to push more grain through here, we're going to try to push it.
What are you growing most of? Corn?
It's corn. We're really diverse across all the fields. It's on an 8-year rotation for all of our crop grounds.
Okay.
So we grow corn, wheat, soybeans. We do a lot of alfalfa, and then we do play around with the oats, the barley, all that good stuff on a really small scale on those.
Sure.
Really corn, wheat, beans, and alfalfa. Those are the big 4 that we're producing right now. So it'll be corn 1 year, then soybeans, then wheat, and then alfalfa for 4 years. Then it goes back into corn. And the unique part about our farm is we're really spread out. We're spread out about 14, 15 miles from top to bottom.
Wow.
So this year with a really wet year that we're having, our southern farms are flooded. I mean, the grain is just not going to become anything down there.
Right.
So all the grain that we're going to utilize off the farm for the distillery is coming off this northern end that we're actually sitting on right now because we're drier up here.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, we did get hail damage up here. So that kind of threw a wrench into our whole plan for a wheat crop. But so that allows me to really go through the fields, pick out the grain. I mean, every week or two, I'll take a walk through all the fields and just check those. So, and we are growing a different variety for our corn. That's a red and yellow hybrid variety.
Okay.
That I've really been impressed with so far. That's coming out of Minnesota right now, that variety. And because up until year 3, we just grew number 2 yellow dent corn.
Yeah.
Same thing as the neighbors farming. You know, everybody around the area is growing the same corn.
Right.
And I was always looking for that unique variety to utilize through here. But I'm so far north that a lot of them cooler varieties, I can't grow. Those guys down in Illinois, Indiana, they got some little luck with them because they can grow those a little bit, more unique varieties for distilling. But I did find this hybrid that's out of Great Northern out of Minnesota that I'm really happy with. So it's a red and yellow hybrid. It still looks like a yellow kernel, but it's got red streaks through and it's loaded with starch content. And that's what I'm looking for.
Interesting. I always love hearing about the different types of corn, like the heirlooms, the bloody butchers, the whatever. And their flavors are vastly different.
Well, it's unbelievable.
Which is fun.
Yeah.
But I mean, and on the other end, I talked to a distiller in Pennsylvania. Great guy, small little business. Doesn't have any distribution other than just in his little tasting room. And, I mean, he's using, I don't want to say Tractor Supply, but it's feeder corn.
Yep.
And he's mashing it.
Yep.
It's not great, but it's not bad, and it's bourbon.
Yep.
So it's like, hey, you can do it.
Yep, you can do it for sure. But it is unbelievable how I can taste the difference now.
Oh, yeah.
And what part of the bin I'm drawing off of also.
Sure.
Because that bottom of the bin has a little bit more of that, dust and all that stuff. I can pick that up coming through the bourbons now. So that's another reason why if I can be done making bourbon by June, great. Because that corn's still fairly fresh. It's sat all winter for us.
Sure.
And we're going to be pushing it through. By the middle of summer, once everything starts heating up, if I can ship the rest of our corn excess off and I don't need it for the rest of the year, that's awesome.
Yeah.
So that was one of my big learning curves also, is utilizing the grain and moisture contents and all that stuff and how to grind it to get out of it what we wanted.
Absolutely.
So we do that all on site also.
That's cool. How much does it mean to you too, for being a part of this family, but also having a hand on from grain to glass?
Yeah.
You're able to literally pick the corn and then pour a sample for a consumer here.
That's my favorite part.
That's gotta be awesome.
Like we do quite a few tours every day, and when everyone's having their drink, and I can tell them which fields that their drinks came out of. That's cool. Because you can see it pretty much from the rick house and the distillery here. That's what I truly love. That's what drives me to do what I do every day up here. Yeah. Because that's what I enjoy. So no, I definitely want to keep going down that road. And everyone asks me if we're going to do, some more unique stuff. And it's like, I can't grow the grain or the crops for that. So no, I'm not interested in it. Because my true thing is, if I'm going to distill it, I want to grow it first of all.
Right.
So
how tired are you to drinking it? Like, will you make something that you won't drink, or is there a...
No. So if I'm going to sell it, I got to like it.
Okay.
If you tried my gins right now, they're not overly powering on that juniper. That's not me. But they got more of the citrus with them, the more botanical side of it.
Yeah.
But that's just me. So everyone's kind of like, how you pick what you're going to sell. And I got to like it. And so, no, there's nothing I will produce that I will not drink. I don't drink a ton, to be honest with you.
Oh, that's probably good.
I'm around it every single given day. We're on the farm pretty early in the morning, typically pretty late at night, because distillery is what we do during the day, farm in the morning and farm at night.
Sure.
So when you got to wake up at 4 a.m. and sweep the grain bins out,
you don't want to be...
No. And then you come in here and you're hungover. It's just not a good situation. So I like sampling. I enjoy a couple of neat sips every now and then. But no, we really don't drink a ton just because we're around it quite a bit. So
yeah, it's probably one of the misconceptions that I've talked to a lot of people who love to tell me. And I know I've worked in the industry, but people think, oh, these distillers and brewers and what's the word for wineries? Vintners.
Yeah.
You're just getting hammered on the job.
Yep. And it's farthest from the truth, really.
You have to be responsible and do the job. And it's actually like chemistry.
Exactly.
Well, that's awesome. So I want to backtrack, and I want you to tell me about your secret little squirreled away barrels that you have. Yeah. What specialties do you have coming up?
So going back to that sweeter side of things, I'm a big port fan, port finished.
I love it.
Yep. So I got some corn whiskey That is actually this guy right here.
Okay.
But that is finished in a port wine barrel coming up.
Oh.
Right there in your hand, that's finished in one of my used bourbon barrels. So one thing I do is I'll make the same mash bill whiskey, for a month at a time, but I only fill 1 to 2 barrels of it, and then it'll go into, a port wine barrel, maybe a honey barrel, maybe a maple barrel. I got Elijah Craig, Heaven Hill, 4 Roses barrels here. A lot of Brown Foreman barrels are sitting over there right now.
Yep.
And then we do have some that's got more rye involved with it a little bit. Those are truly experimentals, but I'm liking what they're doing so far. They're only 3 years age right now. So they're going to get another 2 years or so until I really make my decision if we're going to go ahead and produce this on a bigger scale.
Sure.
But that 4 grain's impressing me. I'm not going to lie. I had hopes for it, but it's one of my favorite things in the rickhouse right now as we speak. That's not, my standard traditional.
Sure.
So
I love 4 grain bourbons.
Exactly.
So
that one I'm very, very happy with. We're going to see what it, at that 4.5 year mark, 5 year, that's really when I'm going to just make my decision if we're going to start growing more rye and using it through here more.
How often are you finding yourself going and checking on things in a barrel?
I'm pretty big on every 3 months.
Okay.
I want to go through at least 1 barrel out of the batch. Because we make 24 barrels in a batch.
Sure.
And I've, because I tell everyone I'm still learning with my barrels.
Yeah.
I don't know what my bourbon tastes like at 6 years old. I'm not there yet.
Right.
I'm only at 5.5.
Sure.
So I want to learn that at 4.5 years, that's where all this apple note shows up. This is where the sweetness shows up. At 5 years, I get a little bit more of the barrel coming through, and so every 3 months, I'm really trying to go through the barrels and just 1 or 2. I never try more than 4 barrels a day. That is my max because I can't pick out the flavors as well after 4 of them.
Right. And
then I just kind of keep going through them all. So yeah, pretty much every 3 months we want to go through. And then with a lot of groups and tours too, nobody minds when I open up a barrel. So kind of part of the job when you're doing a tour is, we always kind of find a unique barrel. So
right.
Even yesterday with a group, they're like, what's something you haven't tried in a while? Well, I got some more unique higher corn mash bills that I was working on. So we tried those. Those impressed me actually. So yeah, about every 3 months, I would say. We are getting now to be, there's about 575 barrels aging out over there.
Wow.
So you don't want to move them.
Right.
And I'm starting to learn parts of the rickhouse a little bit more. I still have a ton to learn on that.
Yeah.
But, just the difference between the top barrels, the middle barrels, the bottom barrels. And so I'm not trying to move them a ton. So the same barrels I'm opening up time after time. But it's pretty cool to see how they progress as we go through. And really the seasons in Wisconsin.
You're right.
Because during the winter, I don't, unless we have a winter like we did last year, when it just didn't get cold. I really don't care to try them, during the colder months. Once they get under 45, 46 degrees in the barrel, I don't see a whole lot going on anymore.
Right.
So, but during the spring and the fall, when we get those big temperature fluctuations, that's when I truly love going through the barrels because you never quite know what's going to show up that day.
How much have you found you're losing for angel share?
I'm losing 6 to 7% a year.
Okay.
So I'm definitely, I've talked to other distillers in the state of Wisconsin. That's a little bit on the higher side.
Yeah.
But one unique thing about us is, so when we first started, all the barrels were aged out in the production area. And the kind of unique part about the production area is once these kettle pots get rolling, it warms up in here in a hurry.
Oh, yeah.
So I was making a temperature fluctuate the first 2, 3, 4 years of its life for some of those barrels.
Sure.
And now I put them outside in that where Mother Nature's in control of the climate.
Right.
So yeah, 6 to 7% a barrel per year is pretty much the average that I'm seeing right now. If I can get out 250 to 280 bottles out of that barrel, I'm pretty happy with that.
So. I've talked to people in Texas who are like 40%.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know how you do that.
Yep. Going back to that brandy side to Wisconsin. Wisconsin Angels love brandy.
Yeah.
Anytime I got brandy aging in a barrel, I'll lose up to 35, 45%. And I cannot figure it out why. It's happened twice to me. And those barrels definitely have a little bit more of their cut taken.
It's because you're in Wisconsin.
Yep.
Like you said, the brandy angels just want it.
Yep.
Oh my God. All the brandy old fashions.
Yep.
Wow. Well, that's pretty cool. I I mean, I'll see some of the space when we're done here,
Yeah.
but I love what you're doing.
Yeah.
And I do want to try your gin.
Yep.
After we're done, I'll try your gin because I've been proved, it's a running joke on the show. I've been proven wrong since day one. I don't like gin. I'm not a gin guy. And then I come across people like you who also don't like the beef eater gross gin.
Yes. And there's definitely that market for that. And that's why I got 2 gins.
Yeah, right.
I started out with a traditional gin that you had enough of the juniper coming through.
Yeah.
But it wasn't going to overwhelm your senses. That's what turned me off on gin is I couldn't taste anything else going on. I could just truly taste juniper.
Sure.
And it's like, this is a
Christmas tree.
Yep. So I backed that first batch of gin. I backed the juniper off to where you'll taste it, but it's not going to overpower your senses. Then I added the coriander. Then I added a little bit of citrus with it. And that did well for my gin drinkers. My non-gin drinkers, which is a thing I hear every single day in Wisconsin, I feel like, is...
It's in my blood.
Yes. Majority of people walking through the door are either had a bad story with gin. My favorite saying is gin makes you sin. And then...
No comment.
So I made a Grandview Garden gin. And that one, I backed the juniper pretty much out of it. It's in there legally.
Right.
But there ain't much of it.
Okay.
And then I put the same amount of coriander. I loaded up sweet citrus. Then what I did is I took rose hips. Rose hips, they were a little bit too delicate to go through my distilling process. So what I did is I started infusing right before bottling.
Okay.
So actually that gin will look like a barrel-aged gin.
It has a little bit of a tint to it.
It has that tint from the rose hips, but that really opens up the gin, makes a sweeter floral finish. That goes very well around here.
Do you have to legally say that it's an infused gin then, or how does that?
So that don't have to.
Okay.
We don't have a gin basket on our stills.
I was going to ask you how you did it too.
Yep. So we have 3 stills right now. None of them have a gin basket. So what I do is I just distill it out, make my first pass, and then I will infuse all the botanicals, redistill it out, just a very quick, hot, fast run.
I see.
Just to leave the color in the pot.
Okay.
I want to get all the flavors to come through, so plates are wide open, and I'm pretty much pushing it through as hard as I can.
Yeah.
But all the color will stay behind for the frostbite and then the first run of the Grandview. So,
Gotcha.
And our vodka, we're triple distilling now. So it goes through the whole process 3 times. So vodka's like, I can make it, but I got about 75 to 90 hours into every batch I put into now. So sleeping up here 3-4 nights a week on average when producing vodka is not uncommon with my older stills. My new eye still sitting there over there.
Yeah.
He helps me out quite a bit. That's my best friend, my best employee right now in the building.
Eye still.
It's 100% automated.
I've heard good things.
It's
game changer.
It's game changer without a doubt. I can be the only distiller back here, mainly just because of that eye still. I come in the morning, fill it up 500-gallon mash, hit start, set the recipe, walk away. I can go bottle. I can do tours, samples, tastings, all that good stuff, knowing I'm making a good product back here. Because that is why I went away from these 2 copper pot stills. They only run about 30 days a year now.
Okay.
And the reason for that is they're so hands-on intensive. And being one or, if I'm lucky, I have somebody here to help me out. If I had a big group walk in, I would have to run out in the tasting room. I might miss the cut that I needed to make here.
Right.
I wrecked batches just because I was working with customers. And, you're never going to tell a customer, hey, I'll be back in 30 minutes. I got to go switch from my heads to hearts. So I'd let the batch wreck itself pretty much.
Right.
So about a year running into those 2 copper stills right there, I knew that wasn't going to be your future. A, I was getting tired of sleeping up here every night. B, my consistency was all over the board due to the fact that I was just saying. So the eye still, we got about 4 years ago, 4.5, right during kind of COVID. And that's been a game changer ever since the day it started.
Okay.
So
very cool. Yeah. Have you thought about doing anything like unique with your gins or your vodkas with a barrel aging or
a little bit
playing around?
Really, right now, my focus is bourbon.
That's a good answer.
Once I feel like I get very comfortable with the stash of bourbon I have on hand,
then you can expand.
Then I'm going to expand and get more creative.
Okay.
That's like the Armagnac and the cognac barrels and all that stuff. I would love to get into that world. But right now, I just need to make the base, and I need to make a lot of it to get to where I'm very comfortable with. And I would say I'm about 2 years away from that.
Okay.
1.5 to 2 years, I'm really going to have a lot of barrels come into, that 4.5 to 5 year range.
Sure.
And then I'll be pretty excited to I still got producing back here what I need to for the bourbon. But if I take a barrel and throw it in a cognac or mix it with an Armagnac a little bit, I'm not afraid to lose that barrel. if it don't turn out exactly how I want it to be.
Sure.
You know, because that's my biggest fear right now is if I take a barrel, try to finish it in something else, and it turns out nothing like I want it to.
Right.
That's a whole barrel wasted, and I don't have those barrels to waste right now because I'm such a young. In the bourbon game, I'm a baby.
Sure.
You know, I'm just getting my feet wet with seeing how my barrels are finishing out. So everyone asks, like, when are you going to get do more unique things with your bourbon whiskey finishes or get more creative with your vodkas? It's like, once I feel comfortable with the base that I have and I'm very, very confident about it, then I'm going to dive into that world 100%.
Well, I mean, that's good to hear. I think the market enjoys that part of your self-awareness because I'm sure there's lots of people out there who just want to ramrod it and then lose money and then they go under.
Exactly.
And it's like, well, yeah, what was it worth to make that port wine finish, whatever, and then you're defunct after 3 years.
Exactly.
So kudos to that.
So so it's coming. 100% it's coming, but I'm not there as a business or a distiller yet. So, but I've been looking at them pretty hard lately. So, and then the vodka and the gins, they sell, but bourbon and whiskey definitely sells quite a bit
Bourbon's
more.
King.
So until that trend kind of starts slowing down a little bit, we're going to keep riding that train.
Well, if you had unlimited resources right now and all the time and all the confidence in your bourbons, what is the thing that you are like, you go to sleep at night thinking, I can't wait to make this, your dream endeavor?
Really, my dream is just have all my bourbons over 5.
Okay. Good answer.
You know, that's really.
I see that. That tells me you care.
That's what I look at every day when I come into work. Is I look at the age statements on all the barrels. I go through the barrel logs and just to see where we are at, because that's my biggest hurdle that I'm looking at right now. And it's no lie. I mean, younger bourbons, they got more of that grain coming through with them, and I really want to see what I'm like at 5.
Yeah,
I can't wait till 7.
Yeah.
9 and 12, I can't even fathom yet, because that might take me 15 years to get there total.
Because you don't know what you're getting out of the barrel.
Exactly, and you don't know. My sales have been going better and better every year.
Yeah.
So try to expect your sales 5 to 7 years from now. What's this world going to be doing then?
Oh, good. I don't know what's going on next year.
Exactly. That's the thing, is how much do you overproduce? Because you're trying to guess that far out.
Yeah.
So that's all been learning curve for me. So it's been a slow process and not trying to, run before I crawl. So I'm just kind of taking it step by step and seeing where I can get to.
Yeah. No, I mean, that's good. Don't overstretch yourself.
Yep.
I mean, you have a good product from what I've tasted, and I've heard a lot of good things about you guys.
Thank you.
I mean, before I even started the show, I've heard about Ledgerock.
Perfect.
And that's awesome.
Yeah. We just enjoy having people up. It's a pretty laid back feeling up here. I mean, you can sit outside right around the grain bin bar, listen to some live music, looking at the grain that you're going to be drinking next year, more than likely, because I try to keep all the grains that I'm growing for the distillery within eyesight of the distillery.
It's good marketing.
Exactly. And like yesterday, we had a group they were from Alaska.
Oh, wow.
And they were here for the EAA show.
Sure.
And they, bought a couple bottles of bourbon. They walked out into the wheat field and the corn field and took pictures, because that's going to be the corn and the wheat we use for next year's bourbon. Actually starting here very shortly. So
very neat.
So that's our big thing up here. Is it's laid back feeling. If you want to come out and relax and just have a good time, every weekend we're doing something up here. And we are open Wednesday through Saturday. So Wednesday through Friday I do tours. And Saturday it's more just chill back, relax, have a good time.
Fantastic.
So, yep.
Well, Bryce, this has been an awesome experience. Ledgerock is a pretty awesome. I mean, grain to glass, I love it.
Yep.
I wish more people did grain to glass. I think they're popping up pretty quick.
They are.
I mean, it's a pleasure to be here with you and share our kinship and spirits.
Yep.
Keep doing what you're doing, and I look forward to seeing the 7 to 9 to 12.
Me too. Trust me, me too. So we appreciate you coming up today and giving us this opportunity.
Yeah, of course. It's a pleasure, man. Well, cheers. I appreciate it. If you enjoyed this episode, I'd really appreciate a follow and share on social media, subscribe to our YouTube, and be sure to give us a rating and review on your favorite podcast platform. Everything you see and hear is out of pocket for us, including travel. If you support our mission of showcasing the amazing stories behind these small businesses, do me a favor and head over to buymeacoffee.com/craftedconvos. Buy Me a Coffee is an awesome way to help creators like me with simple one-time donations or a monthly contribution. Every dime goes into giving these breweries, distilleries, and more some much-deserved limelight. If you have any questions or concerns, please reach out. Cheers!